What would you do if you saw a man stranded on the side of a deserted road in the dead of night? Would you stop? Amelia Hayes did. Greasy-handed and kind-hearted, she offered her skills as a mechanic to a stranger in a bespoke suit, a man whose expensive car had a problem she'd never seen before. She fixed it and refused his money, unaware of the contract she had just signed in blood. She thought she was helping a stranded motorist. She had no idea she had just saved the life of Alexander Volkov, the most ruthless and powerful mafia boss in the city, and he never lets a debt go unpaid. The scent of stale coffee and axle grease was the only perfume Amelia Hayes ever wore. It clung to her clothes, her hair, and the deep-set lines of her palms that no amount of industrial soap could ever scrub clean. At 26, she was the sole proprietor of Hayes Auto, a 3-bay garage wedged between a defunct textile mill and a condemned diner. It was her father's legacy, and it was bleeding money. The final demand notice from the bank felt like a block of ice in her stomach. 30 days. 30 days to come up with 6 figures, or the steel roll-up doors would come down for good. It was just after 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the rain was lashing against the windshield of her beat-up 1990s pickup. She was tired. The kind of tired that settles deep in the bones, a weariness not just from a 16-hour workday, but from months of failed loans and mounting, threatening letters from creditors. She took the long way home, through the old industrial sector, a desolate landscape of rust and shadows. That's when she saw it. A car. Not just any car, but a machine. It was a long, obsidian black Bentley, looking utterly alien against the backdrop of urban decay. It was stopped, hazards flashing feebly against the torrential rain. Standing beside it, illuminated in the weak pulse of the lights, was a man. He was tall, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her garage was worth, and he was staring at the front of his car with a look of controlled fury. Every instinct screamed at Amelia to keep driving. A man like that, in a place like this, at this hour? It was a cocktail for trouble. But her father's voice echoed in her head. A person in a broken-down car is just a person, Amy. You help 'em. No matter what. With a sigh that fogged the inside of her windshield, she slowed, pulled her truck in front of the Bentley, and flipped on her own hazards. The high beams of her truck illuminated the scene. The man didn't flinch. He just watched her, his eyes dark and unreadable. He made no move to gesture for help, nor did he seem relieved. He just watched. Amelia grabbed her heavy-duty maglite and her small toolkit, pulled the hood of her rain slicker up, and stepped out into the storm. "Having trouble," she shouted over the wind. The man's eyes narrowed. He was older than her, perhaps mid-30s, with a face that looked carved from hard angles. His dark hair was soaked and plastered to his forehead, but he seemed utterly indifferent to the cold and the rain. "That's a reasonable assumption," he said. His voice was deep, smooth, with an accent she couldn't quite place. It wasn't friendly. Amelia ignored his tone and shone her flashlight at the front grille. "Pop the hood." He didn't move. "I don't need a tow. I've made a call." "Good for you," Amelia retorted, her patience already thin. "But your call is probably half an hour out, and you're in a car that's broadcasting 'Rob me' to every desperate person in a 5-mile radius. I'm a mechanic. Let me look. Or don't. I don't care." She turned to go. "Wait." The single word cut through the rain. It wasn't a request. It was a command. She turned back. He had a remote in his hand and pressed it. The hood of the Bentley popped open with a quiet, expensive snick. Amelia got to work. She shone her light into the pristine engine bay. It was a masterpiece of German engineering, clean enough to eat off, but she spotted it almost immediately her trained eyes catching what a layman never would. "Well, there's your problem," she muttered. She pointed the beam at the electronic throttle control module. "This isn't a breakdown. This is sabotage." The man's posture changed. He went from irritated stillness to absolute, lethal focus. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she said, leaning in, "your main wiring harness has been compromised." She pointed to a spot where the wires were cleanly sliced, but in a way that would take an expert to find. "And your backup line is fried. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't want this car to just stop. They wanted it dead. Right here." She looked up at him. "You must have really ticked someone off." His eyes were like polished obsidian. He gave a small, humorless smile. "I have a talent for it." Amelia sighed. "Okay, this is a $5,000 repair at a dealership. It's not something I can fix on the side of the road." "I see." His tone was flat. He was already reaching into his suit jacket. "But," Amelia interrupted, "I can bypass it." She set her toolkit on the wet pavement. "It'll be ugly, it'll void your warranty, and you'll have every warning light on your dash screaming at you. But it'll get you home." For the next 20 minutes, she worked in silence. She was a blur of precise, confident motion, her greasy fingers deftly splicing wires, bypassing the fried module, and wrapping the connections in high-grade electrical tape from her kit. The man just watched her. He didn't offer to help. He didn't speak. He just stood there, getting soaked, his gaze fixed on her hands, as if she were defusing a bomb. Finally, she wiped her hands on an already filthy rag from her back pocket. "Okay, try it." He got into the driver's seat. The car, which had been utterly silent, roared to life with a deep, throaty vroom. As she predicted, the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. He got out of the car, his expression unreadable. He walked over to her, pulling out a thick, monogrammed leather wallet. He began to pull out bills. Large ones. Amelia held up a hand. "Don't!" He paused. "I pay for services rendered." "I didn't do it for money," she said, packing up her tools. "My dad always said, you help people who are stranded. That's it. No charge." "I'm not people," he said, his voice dropping. "And this wasn't a service. You're a professional. You deserve payment." "And I'm declining it," Amelia said, her temper flaring. She was tired of rich people thinking a handful of cash could solve anything. "Just get home safe, and maybe find a new route." She slammed her truck's toolbox shut and headed for her door. "Ms. Hayes." She froze. Her hand was on the door handle. She hadn't told him her name. She looked back, and her eyes darted to the side of her truck. The Hayes Auto logo was there, faded but readable, along with the phone number. He was holding out a business card. It was thick, heavy cardstock, pure black with embossed silver lettering. It said, "A.V. Enterprises, Alexander Volkov." There was no title, no address, just a phone number. "I don't need a card," she said. "Take it," he insisted. He wasn't asking. He stepped forward, and before she could protest, he gently but firmly pushed the card into the chest pocket of her greasy overalls. His fingers brushed the fabric, and a strange jolt, like static, passed between them. "I repay my debts," Alexander Volkov said. His eyes held hers. "Always." Amelia just stared at him, unnerved. "It's not a debt, it's a courtesy. Have a good night." She got in her truck, started the engine, and pulled away, her heart hammering for a reason she couldn't explain. She watched him in her rearview mirror, a tall, dark silhouette against the powerful headlights of his resurrected car. She drove home, tossed the card on her cluttered kitchen counter, and fell into bed, dismissing the encounter as just another weird night in a weird city, She had no idea that she hadn't just fixed a car. She had interrupted an assassination, and Alexander Volkov, the man the underworld called the Ghost, now owed her his life. 3 days later, Amelia was knee-deep in the engine of a rusted-out minivan when a man in a crisp suit walked into her garage. He wasn't a customer. He smelled like new money and expensive cologne. "Amelia Hayes?" he asked, looking around the grimy office with poorly concealed disdain. "That's me," she grunted, not looking up. "If you're here about the First National loan, I'm working on it. Your boss will get his money." "I'm not from the bank, Ms. Hayes. I'm Mr. Peterson from Sterling Properties. The bank no longer holds your note." Amelia finally stood up, wiping her hands on a rag. "What? Who bought it?" "I'm not selling." Mr. Peterson smiled, a thin, reptilian expression. "It's not a negotiation. The new owner of your debt is an associate of mine. He has, however, instructed me to deliver this." He slid a manila envelope onto the counter. Amelia opened it. Inside was a single document. She read it, her eyes widening. She read it again, and a third time. It was a paid-in-full notice. The entire 6-figure loan, including interest and penalties, had been settled. I don't understand," she stammered. "Who did this? Why?" "My associate believes in community investment," Peterson said smoothly. "The property is yours, free and clear. He wishes you well." Amelia's blood ran cold. This wasn't a gift. It was a chain. "Who is he? I can't accept this." "You already have," Peterson said. "The debt is settled. There's nothing to accept." He turned and walked out, leaving Amelia staring at a piece of paper that represented both her salvation and her damnation. She ran to her counter, frantically digging through the pile of receipts and junk mail. She found it. The black card. AV Enterprises. Her hands were shaking as she dialed the number. It rang once. "Yes." The same deep, smooth voice from the roadside. "This is Amelia Hayes," she said, her voice unsteady. You paid off my garage." There was a pause. "As I said, Ms. Hayes, I repay my debts." "This isn't a repayment. This is a fortune. I won't accept this. I'll pay you back. I'll set up a plan. No," he said, cutting her off. His voice was calm, final. "You will not. The matter is closed. It was a business transaction." "What business? What do you want from me?" she demanded, panic rising in her throat. "I wanted to settle a debt. I have done so. Goodbye, Amelia." The line went dead. Amelia felt like she was going to be sick. This wasn't real. People didn't just pay off other people's crippling debt. Not unless they wanted something in return. Something more than money. But the next week, things got stranger. The loan shark who had been sending threatening letters about her father's old business debts, a separate, more dangerous problem, suddenly went silent. A man named Ricky, who had twice come by to remind her of her obligation, didn't show up. When she cautiously called the number she had, it was disconnected. Then, a massive shipment of high-end diagnostic tools she had ordered months ago and cancelled because she couldn't afford the down payment arrived on a flatbed truck. The invoice was stamped, paid. Amelia was living in a state of terrified confusion. She was no longer drowning in debt, but she felt like she was in deeper water than ever. She went to work. She fixed cars, but she was constantly looking over her shoulder. Every customer was a potential threat. Every black sedan that drove past her garage made her heart leap into her throat. She was being watched. She could feel it. Across town, in a penthouse office that viewed Apex City as a glittering map, Alexander Volkov stood at a floor-to-ceiling window. "She's scared," said a man behind him. This was Ben Carter, his head of security, his right hand, the only man he trusted implicitly. "She should be," Alexander said, not turning. "She's smart. She knows this isn't a gift. The debt is paid, Alex. You saved her garage. You're square." "Square?" Alexander turned. His eyes were cold. "She saved my life. Thorne's men had me bracketed. They knew my route. They knew the car's weaknesses. It was a perfect trap. That tow truck she mentioned? That was the hit team. They were 10 minutes out. If she hadn't stopped, if she hadn't been able to do the impossible and bypass that system, I'd be a body in a ditch." "So you paid her. Generously." "She refused my money," Alexander said, a flicker of something, admiration, curiosity in his gaze. "She has integrity. It's a rare commodity. And now she's a loose end." "A loose end?" Ben looked confused. "She's a mechanic. She doesn't know anything." "She knows my face," Alexander corrected him. "She knows I was vulnerable, and Marcus Thorne knows his hit failed. He's going to wonder why. He's going to backtrack. He's going to find out who was on that road. And when he finds her—" Ben's expression hardened. "You think he'll go after her?" "I know he will. He'll use her to get to me, or he'll silence her permanently. Either way, she's in my world now, whether she likes it or not." "So what's the play?" Ben asked. "We can't just leave her out there as bait." "No," Alexander said. "We're not. She's a professional, as she said. So I'm going to hire her. She's too proud to accept a gift, but she can't refuse a job. Especially not when the job is the only thing that will keep her alive." He picked up his phone. "Get the car. We're going to Hayes Auto." Amelia was welding a cracked exhaust bracket when the shadow fell over her. She flipped up her mask, her body tense. Alexander Volkov was standing 2 feet away, looking as immaculate in a dark grey suit as he had on the side of the road. His car, a different one this time, a matte black Audi RS, was parked silently in her driveway. "Ms. Hayes," he said. "Mr. Volkov." She set the welding torch down, her heart thumping a heavy, fearful rhythm. "I told you, I'm going to pay you back." "We've already discussed that," he said, dismissing her words with a wave of his hand. "I'm not here about the loan. I'm here with a job offer." Amelia laughed, a short, harsh sound. "A job offer? Look around. I have a job." "You have a dying business I resurrected," he stated bluntly. "I'm offering you a career. I have a fleet of vehicles, high-end, custom, and sensitive. They require a mechanic with a unique skill set. Someone who can fix complex electrical problems on the fly. Someone who can be discreet. Someone who knows how to bypass a fried throttle module," Amelia finished, her eyes narrowing. "Precisely." "I'm not interested," she said flatly. "I don't work for whatever it is you do." "What I do," Alexander said, "is run AV enterprises. We have holdings in shipping, real estate, and private security. My vehicles are targeted by competitors. I need a mechanic I can trust. Someone who isn't already on another's payroll. Someone who owes me." The last 2 words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. "I thought you said the debt was paid," she whispered. "The financial debt is. But you are now a person of interest to my competitors. The same people who disabled my car. They know a civilian was there. They're looking for you." A cold dread, sharper than any she'd felt before, washed over her. "You're lying. You're just trying to scare me." "Am I?" he asked. He gestured to Ben Carter, who had been standing silently by the door. Ben tapped his phone. Amelia's own phone buzzed. He had sent her a file. It was a short, grainy video from a security camera on a building across from her garage. It was time-stamped from the day before. It showed 2 men in a dark sedan, parked down the street. They were taking pictures of her customers, of her truck. She recognized one of them. It was Ricky, the loan shark. Ricky worked for a man named Marcus Thorne, Alexander said, his voice a low monotone. Thorne is my main competitor. He's the one who put the squeeze on your garage. He's the one who tried to kill me. And now he knows you were there. He thinks you work for me. Amelia felt her knees buckle. She leaned back against the workbench. You have two choices, Alexander continued. You can stay here, pretend this isn't happening, and wait for Thorne to send men who aren't just taking pictures. Or you can come work for me. I'll pay you 5 times what you make here. I'll give you resources you've only dreamed of. And in return for your services, I will provide you with my personal protection. Protection, she repeated numbly. Like a bodyguard? Like an employer, he corrected. You will be my private mechanic. You will be on call 24/7. You will work on my cars and my cars alone. You will live in a secure apartment I provide. You will be an asset. An asset, she whispered, the word tasting like poison. A prisoner. A protected asset, he said. It's a better offer than Marcus Thorne will make. Amelia looked around the garage, the worn tools, her father's old toolbox, the smell of grease. It was her whole life, and it was now a target. Do I have a choice? She asked. Not a survivable one, Alexander replied, with no hint of apology. If I do this, my garage, what happens to it? It's yours. I'll have a management team run it for you. You'll receive the profits, or you can sell it. It doesn't matter to me. She looked at her hands, covered in grease and nicks, her father's hands. He had built this place to be free, and now she was using it to bargain for her life. Fine, she said, her voice shaking with rage and fear. Fine, I'll work for you. Good. Alexander nodded, as if the outcome had never been in doubt. Pack a bag, just the essentials. Ben will escort you. Now, I can't just leave. You can and you will. He turned to leave. Welcome to AV Enterprises, Miss Hayes. An hour later, Amelia was in the back of the Audi, a single duffel bag at her feet. Ben Carter drove, his silence as unnerving as Alexander's presence. They drove downtown to the tallest, newest skyscraper in Apex City, a pillar of black glass and steel that bore the AV logo at its pinnacle. They didn't go to the lobby. Ben drove them into a private, subterranean parking structure. The elevator required his fingerprint and a code. It descended. When the doors opened, Amelia's jaw dropped. This wasn't a garage. It was a bunker, a high-tech lair. It was a cavernous, brilliantly lit space filled with at least a dozen cars, armored Mercedes, custom-built SUVs, and 2 sleek supercars. On one side, there was a state-of-the-art diagnostic bay, lifts, and a wall of tools that made her own garage look like a relic. This, Alexander said, stepping out of the elevator, is your new workshop. Amelia walked forward, stunned. She ran a hand over the cool metal of a fully equipped fabrication station. But then, she saw the other side of the room. There was a weapons locker. There were tactical vests hanging on hooks. And in one of the bays, a black Cadillac Escalade was being worked on by 2 men in quiet, professional overalls. The side panel was off, and she could see the thick, layered weave of Kevlar and ceramic plating. They were welding a panel that had been damaged. It looked like bullet holes. "You're not in real estate," she whispered, turning to him. The full, crushing weight of her situation finally hit her. This wasn't a competitor. This was a war. "I told you," he said. "I have holdings in private security." "This isn't security. This is the Mafia," she breathed, the word feeling foreign and absurd. Alexander Volkov didn't laugh. He didn't deny it. He just regarded her with those same cold, assessing eyes. Some call us that. I prefer to think of myself as a stabilizer of volatile markets. I am the man who owns the shadows in this city, Ms. Hayes. The police, the mayor, the judges, they manage the daylight. I manage everything else. Amelia backed away, shaking her head. No, I can't. I'm a mechanic. I fix cars. And you will continue to fix cars, he said, taking a step toward her. He was close now, and she could smell the faint, clean scent of expensive soap and wool. You'll fix my cars, the ones that keep my men alive, the ones that allow me to move through this city. You're not just a mechanic anymore, Amelia. He stopped, just a foot from her. You're my mechanic. You're the one who saved the ghost. And now, you belong to me. Amelia's new home was a cage, but it was a magnificent one. Alexander had installed her in a penthouse apartment 3 floors below his own. It was a sprawling, sterile expanse of white marble, glass and chrome, with a breathtaking view of the city she was no longer free to walk in. She was paid a weekly salary that was more than she used to make in 3 months. She had a private elevator that took her directly to the bunker garage. She was watched, always. Ben Carter, or one of his silent, suit-clad subordinates, was her constant shadow. Her first week was a blur of disorientation. She was put to work immediately. Her job was to inspect, maintain, and upgrade Alexander's entire fleet. She found GPS trackers on 3 of the cars, which she reported. She found a weakness in the armor plating of his personal sedan, which she reinforced. She was good at it. Terrifyingly good. The work was complex and engaging, and a part of her, the mechanic part, thrived. She was working with technology she'd only read about in manuals, but the other part of her was a prisoner. Alexander himself was a paradox. He was rarely there, but his presence was constant. He would appear in the garage at all hours, silently watching her work. "You're replacing the entire wiring harness on the Land Rover," he stated one afternoon, not asking. "I am," Amelia said, not looking up. "The insulation is standard. It can be shorted with a high-voltage charge. I'm replacing it with military spec, shielded cabling. It'll be immune to an EMP. An EMP, he repeated. "Marcus Thorne," she said, her voice tight. "I read the after-action reports on that shipment ambush last year. His team used an EMP device. Your men were sitting ducks." Alexander was silent for a long moment. "You read the after-action reports?" "You left the server unlocked," she said, finally meeting his gaze. "Or you meant for me to see it. Either way, if I'm going to do this job, I'm going to do it right. I'm not just going to change your oil. I'm going to keep you alive." A flicker of respect entered his eyes. "See that you do." They fell into a strange, tense rhythm. He would find her in the garage, and they would talk. Not about his business, but about engines, about physics, about her father. "He taught me," she said one night, her hands deep in the guts of a modified engine. "He could listen to a V8 and tell you which cylinder was misfiring. He loved it. This was his whole life." "He was a good man," Alexander said. "It wasn't a question." "He was," Amelia whispered. "He died trying to save this place. He took on loans from the wrong people. From Thorne." "You knew it was Thorne?" Alexander asked, his voice sharp. "Not at first. Not until you showed me that video of Ricky. I just knew it was a predator. Someone who was bleeding my father dry. When he died, the debt became mine. Thorne has been trying to acquire that entire industrial block for a decade," Alexander said quietly. "He wants to build a new shipping depot. Your father's garage was the last holdout. He wasn't just giving him a loan. He was planning a foreclosure." Amelia's hand stilled. "So, all this time, He was the one. The man who destroyed my family. He was, Alexander confirmed. And you? You paid him off? You gave my enemy money? No, Amelia, Alexander said, his voice turning cold as steel. I didn't pay him off. I bought your debt. I am the new lien holder. Marcus Thorne didn't get a single dollar. He lost his leverage. He lost you. The implication was staggering. This wasn't a rescue. This was a hostile takeover. Alexander hadn't just saved her from Thorne. He had taken her from him. Why? She breathed. Just to get at him? At first, Alexander admitted, it was an opportunity to needle an opponent. And then he tried to kill me. And you were the one who stopped it. That made you valuable. That made you mine. Before she could process this, an alarm blared, a silent one that flashed on Ben Carter's tablet. Boss, Ben said, appearing at the garage entrance. Thorne is here. Amelia's blood froze. Here, in the building. At the gala, Alexander said, his face hardening into an impassive mask. He looked annoyed. The mayor's charity ball. I'd forgotten. He looked at Amelia, a long, calculating look. You're coming with me. What? No, I'm not. I don't go to galas. You do tonight? He was already walking to the elevator. Thorne has been sniffing around, trying to find out what I took from him. He thinks it's a thing, a weapon, a piece of information. He doesn't know it's a person. Tonight, we'll show him. Show him? You want to parade me in front of him? I'm not a trophy. Alexander stopped and turned to her. No, you're not. You're a shield. You're the only person in that entire ballroom who isn't allied with me, or against me. You're the only person I can stand next to and know, for a fact, you're not trying to stab me in the back. Now, he said, his voice softening just a fraction. Go upstairs. There is a closet in your apartment. Pick something. An hour later, Amelia was unrecognizable. The white marble apartment had a walk-in closet filled with clothes in her size. She had chosen the simplest, most severe dress, a column of dark emerald silk that left her shoulders bare. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek, low bun, a few tendrils escaping. The grease was gone from under her nails, but her hands were still calloused. When she met Alexander at the private elevator, his eyes swept over her, a slow, appreciative inventory that made her skin heat. Emerald, he said. A good choice. The gala was a sea of glittering phonies, politicians, judges, and businessmen, all smiling and shaking hands. Amelia recognized the mayor and the chief of police, both of whom greeted Alexander with a deference that bordered on fear. They all know who you are, she whispered, clinging to his arm. They all know who pays for their campaigns, he replied, handing her a glass of champagne. Drink. Try to look like you're not facing a firing squad. And then she saw him. Marcus Thorne. He was the opposite of Alexander. Where Alexander was cold, dark, and precise, Thorne was flashy. He wore a tuxedo with a velvet jacket, his hair was slicked back, and a massive diamond glittered on his pinky. He was laughing, a loud, braying sound, surrounded by people. Then his eyes found theirs. He locked onto Alexander. And then his gaze shifted to Amelia. His smile vanished. Recognition dawned. He knew. He detached himself from his group and glided toward them. Volkov, Thorne said, his voice oily. I didn't think this was your scene. And you, he said, turning his full, predatory attention to Amelia. The little mechanic. My. You clean up well. Amelia's hand tightened on Alexander's arm, her knuckles turning white. Thorne, Alexander said, his voice a polite, icy blade. I'm surprised to see you out. I heard you'd had car trouble recently. Thorn's eyes flashed. Things break. I replace them. Though I am curious, you seem to have acquired some of my property. His eyes licked over Amelia again. I was under the impression that Garage was about to be mine. Your impression was mistaken, Alexander said. I found the business, and its owner, to have potential. I invested. Invested? Thorn sneered. Is that what we're calling it? She's a long way from changing tires. Be careful, Volkov. Taking in strays is a good way to get fleas. And poaching in another man's territory is a good way to get put down, Alexander replied, his voice dangerously soft. The air crackled. The party seemed to fade away. It was just the three of them. Thorn looked at Amelia. He may dress you up, sweetheart, but you're just a tool, and tools get broken. Before Amelia could even flinch, Alexander moved. It was so fast she almost missed it. He didn't hit Thorn. He simply adjusted the set of Thorn's tuxedo, his hand resting on Thorn's lapel. But the gesture was so intimate, so threatening, that Thorn froze, his smile finally cracking. "This tool," Alexander whispered, loud enough for only the three of them to hear, "is the only reason I'm here to have this conversation. She is under my protection. If you so much as send a man to look at her garage again, I will burn your entire shipping empire to the waterline. Am I clear?" Thorn's face, usually so ruddy, was pale. He slowly, carefully, disengaged from Alexander's grip. "Crystal, Volkov," he hissed. He gave Amelia one last, poisonous look, then turned and stalked away. Amelia was shaking. Alexander steered her toward a quiet balcony. "Are you all right?" he asked. You just threatened him in a room full of people." "No one saw a thing," Alexander said. "They just saw two businessmen having a quiet word." He leaned on the railing, looking at the city lights. He recognized me," she whispered. "I know. He called me a tool. He's wrong." Alexander turned to face her. The moonlight caught the silver in his black hair. "He's a blunt instrument. You're a precision engine. He can't understand you. He can't understand why I would value you." "Why do you?" she asked, her voice small. "Is it just because I saved you?" He was silent for a long time. He reached out, his thumb brushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek. His touch was rough, calloused, like her own, but it sent a shock through her system. "I value you," he said, his voice losing its icy edge, "because you're the only person I've met in 10 years who has looked me in the eye and told me, no. You did it on the side of that road, covered in mud. You did it in your garage, surrounded by my power. You're real. In a world of fakes, you are real." He was so close. She could see the fatigue in his eyes, the immense weight he carried. He was a monster, a killer, a criminal, but in that moment, he was just a man. He leaned in. Amelia's breath caught. She didn't pull away. She was terrified, but she was also fascinated. The kiss, when it came, wasn't gentle. It was possessive. It was a claim, a brand. It tasted of expensive whiskey and a loneliness so profound it mirrored her own. It was a promise of protection and a sentence of imprisonment all at once. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark. "He will not touch you," he said. "I promise you that." But as they stood there, high above the city, Amelia knew. This was the beginning. The gala wasn't an end to the confrontation. It was a declaration of war. And she was standing at the epicenter. The fragile truce, if it could even be called that, shattered 3 days after the gala. Marcus Thorn, publicly humiliated and privately furious, retaliated. It wasn't a direct attack. Thorn was a snake, not a wolf. He hit one of Alexander's primary warehouses at the docks, not with men, but with fire. A suspicious electrical fault, the fire marshal said. But when Alexander's men went through the wreckage, they found the residue of advanced chemical accelerants. The fire had been so hot it had warped steel. The shipment, millions in untraceable electronics, was gone. Alexander became the ghost. He disappeared from the penthouse, spending his days and nights in a tactical command center Amelia didn't even know existed, deep in the sublevels of the building. He was planning his countermove. Amelia was left in the gilded cage of her apartment, or in her pristine garage bunker, with only Ben Carter and his team for company. The silence from Alexander was deafening. She was an asset to be protected, and like a prized car, she was being kept in storage while the storm raged. The isolation gnawed at her. She wasn't built to be idle. She wasn't built to be a protected doll. She was a mechanic. She solved problems, and she had a massive problem she needed to solve. She went to the garage, but not to work on the cars. She went to the server. Alexander had been careless, or, she suspected, deliberately permissive. He had left her a high-level access keycard for ordering parts. She found it also gave her access to his unencrypted files. She wasn't looking for business details. She was looking for her. Hayes Amelia, she typed into the search bar. A file popped up. It was a complete surveillance dossier. It had her photo, her social security number, her father's death certificate. And it had the loan documents. She opened the file for her garage. She saw the original loan her father had taken. She saw the predatory interest rate. She saw the name of the shell corporation that had issued it. Thorn Maritime Investments. Alexander had been right. Thorn had been the puppet master from the start. He was the one who had sent Ricky. He was the one who was going to take her garage. Then she saw another file, one she hadn't seen before. Incident report, 10/14/25. A. Volkov, personal. Her breath hitched. That was the night she'd found him on the road. She opened it. It was a full breakdown of the event, written by Ben Carter. Subject Volkov departed safe house at 01:30. Route was standard. Vehicle, Bentley Mulsanne, armored. Incident, vehicle disabled at 01:55. Industrial sector, quadrant 4. Cause, deliberate expert sabotage of primary and secondary electronic throttle control. Assassination protocol. Hostile team, Belestas to 4-man, call sign Wrecker, was en route. ETA 0210. Amelia's blood ran cold. Wrecker. She remembered Alexander's words. That tow truck she mentioned, that was the hit team. She read on. Civilian, Hayes Amelia. Proprietor, Hayes Auto. Arrived on scene 01:58. Motive, apparent Samaritan. Hayes identified sabotage. Bypassed security module. Vehicle operational 02:20. Hayes departed scene 02:22. Hostile Wrecker team arrived 02:25. Found scene empty. Aborted mission. Conclusion, civilian Hayes inadvertently intercepted a level 1 assassination attempt. Her skills are anomalous. She is a high-value, high-risk variable. Amelia sank into the operator's chair. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a simple breakdown. It wasn't just that he was stranded. He was being hunted. He was minutes from being executed. She hadn't just helped him. She hadn't just saved him from a tow. She had saved his life. This changed everything. The power dynamic, which had felt so one-sided, so predatory, suddenly inverted. He hadn't rescued her from Thorn's debt because he was a benevolent shadow. He hadn't even done it as a power play. He had done it because he owed her. He, Alexander the Ghost. Volkov, the most powerful man in the city, was in her debt. A life for a life. The money, the apartment, the protection. It wasn't a cage. It was a desperate, controlling, mafia-style repayment. She was so deep in her thoughts, she didn't hear the elevator. "You're not supposed to be in those files." She spun around. Alexander was standing there. He looked exhausted. His suit was rumpled. There was a dark stubble on his jaw and a small, fresh cut over his right eyebrow. The war was not going well. "You knew," she whispered, her voice shaking, not with fear, but with a new, cold fury. "You knew he was trying to kill you." Alexander's eyes flickered to the screen, then back to her. He didn't deny it. "Thorn has been trying to kill me for 5 years. "No," she said, standing up. "You knew that night. You knew I wasn't just fixing a car. You knew I was saving you from a hit." He was silent. His stillness was his confession. "All this time," she yelled, her voice echoing in the concrete bunker. "You let me believe you were the predator. You let me believe you had trapped me, that you'd bought me like one of your cars. It was the only way to protect you," he said, his voice a low growl. "If you knew the truth, what would you have done? Run? Thorn would have found you in a day. He'd have tortured you for information on me. What I looked like, what I said, how I acted when I was vulnerable. So you made me your prisoner instead. I made you my asset," he roared, slamming his hand on the steel workbench. The sound was like a gunshot. "I made you untouchable. I put you in a fortress, gave you a salary that would make a banker weep, and painted a target on my own back at that gala to draw the fire away from you. What more did you want?" "The truth," she screamed back, tears of rage in her eyes. "I wanted the truth, Alexander. You owe me that. You didn't buy me. You didn't save me. I saved you. You are in my debt." The air crackled with the raw, unspoken reality of her words. He stared at her, his chest heaving. The mask of the ghost was gone. She was seeing the man, a man who had been cornered, a man who was in a war he was, for the first time, not certain he could win. "Yes," he said, his voice finally breaking. "You're right, I am. I owe you my life, a debt I have been repaying in the only way I know how. By controlling me, by protecting you. It's the same thing." He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of profound frustration. "Thorn, he's not just a thug, Amelia. He's smart. He's dug in. The warehouse fire. It wasn't just electronics. It was leverage. Documents I had on the chief of police. He's crippled me. He's cut my supply lines. And he's taken my eyes." He slumped against the workbench, the exhaustion hitting him all at once. "He's winning," he whispered. It was an admission she knew must have cost him everything. Amelia looked at him. The rage was still there, hot and bright, but something else was mixing with it. Pity, understanding, and a terrifying, proprietary feeling. This man, this monster, he was hers. His life belonged to her. "So let me help," she said. He looked up, confused. "Help? You're a mechanic." "I'm your mechanic," she corrected, walking toward him. "I'm the one who knows how to fix things that are broken. You're broken. Your operation is broken. And I know cars. What does that have to do with anything?" "What's the one thing Thorn values more than money?" she asked. Alexander thought for a second. He has a car, a custom-built, armored Rolls-Royce, a one-of-a-kind. He calls it the Behemoth. He's pathologically paranoid. He won't go anywhere without it." A slow, cold smile spread across Amelia's face. It was a smile that would have looked alien to her a month ago. "A car," she said. "He trusts a car. And I know cars. You've been trying to fight him in the warehouses and the banks. He's a snake." She tapped her temple. "You need to fight him where he lives. You need to take away the one thing he thinks keeps him safe." Alexander's eyes, dull with fatigue, sharpened. He was listening, really listening. "I've seen the schematics for that model," she said, pulling up a new file on the server. "Thorn had it custom armored, but the chassis is the same, and it has a flaw." She pointed to a diagram of the vehicle's onboard computer. "It's over-engineered," she said, her voice full of the old, confident grease monkey arrogance. "He thinks it's a fortress, but it's not. It's a cage. And I," she said, looking Alexander dead in the eye, "know exactly how to build the key." Amelia's workshop became a war room. "Thorn's behemoth, his armored Rolls-Royce, isn't a fortress," she declared, building a black box of wires and circuit boards. "It's a network, and I can break it." Alexander watched, astonished, as she explained her plan. "He has a meeting at the Argent Hotel. He'll use the First Street Bridge." "A kill box," Alexander realized, his tactical mind catching up to hers. "I have to be close," Amelia insisted. "In the bridge's trusses, not in a car. I need a clean shot with this." She held up her device. That night, the bridge was a steel trap. As Thorn's convoy sped across, Alexander's teams, in 2 heavy-duty trucks, executed a perfect pincer movement, ramming the escort cars and trapping the behemoth. From her perch in the cold ironwork above, Amelia pointed her antenna and pressed the button. Below, the Rolls-Royce choked. Its lights died. The engine went silent. She hadn't just shut it off, she had entombed him. While Alexander's men swiftly neutralized the guards, he walked to the dead car and had the door blown off its hinges. A terrified Marcus Thorn was dragged out. "What did you do to my car?" he shrieked. Alexander looked up into the darkness where he knew she was watching. She did. Back in the penthouse, the war was over. "You're free, Amelia," Alexander said, his voice heavy. "Thorn is gone. You can have your old life back." Amelia looked at the man she had saved, the monster she had surpassed. "I don't want it," she said, stepping toward him. "That girl is gone. I saved your life, Alexander. That makes it mine." He pulled her in, his eyes blazing. "This world will break you." "It already tried," she whispered and kissed him. It wasn't the kiss of a captive. It was the kiss of a queen. And that's the story of how a simple act of kindness on a dark, rainy night changed everything. Amelia thought she was fixing a car, but she was really seizing a throne. She proved that knowledge is power, that integrity is a weapon, and that the most dangerous person isn't the one with the gun, but the one who knows how to break the machine. Alexander Volkov may rule the city's underworld, but he is ruled by the one woman who saw the man behind the monster and wasn't afraid. If you loved this story of drama, karma, and dark romance, please show your support. Hit that like button, share this video with a friend who loves a good twist, and most importantly, click subscribe and ring the bell. We have new stories coming every week, and you won't want to miss what happens next in the shadows of the city. Thanks for listening.